26th. This is the time set for the J&J Consulting Services investor call. I appreciate everyone joining me this morning. It is approximately 10 a.m. As I said, on June 23rd. Just quick disclaimers again. Nothing in this call today should be construed as legal or accounting advice. If you have legal or accounting questions, I do recommend you reach out to competent counsel. Anything we talk about, anyone we talk about in this case should be innocent until proven guilty, or considered innocent until proven guilty. I want to kind of jump straight into the questions. We did get a number of questions for this call, so I'm going to get right into them and we'll get through them as quickly as we can. So the first question was asking if we can give more updates about filings. We are happy to increase the number of updates that we send out. We are just trying to be conscious of the fact that not everyone wants to receive, a few emails every week regarding filings. We do try to get notice out whenever anything important has been filed, but we'll definitely keep that in mind and look to continue to try to keep you guys informed as to what's going on. Next one has to do with whether or not the receiver gets a percentage of the payout based on what's paid to investors or not. The receiver, we are just paid on an hourly basis. We do not receive any commission or any other type of fees like that. The next comment was that we keep billing every month with no significant amount of money coming in lately. We have settled over $10 million worth of third-party settlements in the last few months. We have collected over $6.5 million of that so far to date, as well as other assets that we continue to collect and will be continuing to collect here into the future. We'll just see the next set of questions has to do with attorney's fees. Will any third-party attorney's fees be taking out of money recovered? When we hire outside litigation regarding lawsuits with things like banks and others, sometimes they're done on an hourly basis. Sometimes they're done on a contingency fee. For example, Wells Fargo is being done on a contingency fee, and their fees will be awarded by the judge in this case. Your stated your attorney is working for substantial discount, yet we are being charged 33%. That is actually not what is going to be charged. The agreement we have with outside counsel is 25%. I'm aware of what was put into that agreement. That is the maximum amount that is the normal fee that they would charge on a contingency basis. However, we do have an agreement at 25%. If you have a question, so somebody wants to know how to deal if they feel that like the receiver is not not wanting to move towards resolving or negotiating in a timely manner. If you have specific questions about us negotiating or trying to deal with an issue directly with you as a party, please do feel free to reach out to us, or you can reach out to the court as well. However, we are looking to try to settle many of these third-party litigations as quickly as we can, and are working through the litigation as quickly as it can. But anybody who's ever been involved in litigation should know that sometimes things don't happen as quickly as we would like. Next comment has to do with the distribution process. When can we expect to receive our checks distributed? See, and then so the question, the answer to that question is, it looks like it's probably going to be the third quarter before checks go out, even potentially the fourth quarter, and that's just based on the timing set forth. One of the issues is the Wells Fargo settlement was scheduled to be originally heard in June, and then it got pushed out to July due to some timing issues with some of the attorneys outside of the people that work for me that had some timing issues. So that will actually be heard on July 7th. We also have filed the form of the letter that the court wants us to send out to investors that are being objected to. That has a specific timeline set to it. So once the court approves that, then we will get those letters out as quickly as possible to begin that clock. And so people want to know why there's been delays in that process. One of the big issues with claims and why the claims were pushed out as far as they were is we did have some issues related to a group of investors that were invested through a fund. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about that later on in this discussion. Says, are you delaying the payoff for purposes of earning monthly fees for this process? No, we want to get this money out as quickly as we can. We spoke with the court about it just back in June when we had our hearing. we don't get anything extra for holding on to this money. In fact, we want to get it out into the hands as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, there's a number of legal steps involved in that, and we've also been receiving some objections that the court has ultimately denied, but do slow down the process, unfortunately. What is the next steps with the court? As I said, we're waiting on the court right now to sign an order that will allow us to send out or agree to the letter that we are going to send out to investors. Once that gets done, there is a set timeline regarding that. There's approximately a 60-day process for allowing investors to review those letters and to get back with us and work with us, and then we will be filing that with the court and hopefully to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. We really do want to see that get done. The next question is, when can we reasonably expect the distribution plan will be filed? We intend to file the distribution plan before we file the final filing required for the claims. So that way, once that process is passed, hopefully we'll have a signed distribution order in place allowing us to distribute. We would love to be able to distribute all of the money as well as the Wells Fargo funds. But if we do believe that there's going to be any delay in that process, that we would recommend that potentially we would do two separate distributions where we distribute the amount of cash we have available now, and then potentially in a couple months after that do a second distribution to cover the Wells Fargo funds. The cost of doing a distribution is actually very inexpensive, so that could be a potential option if we think that money is going to get held up at all. Next question has to do with the delays regarding the Horizon Trust Company. We are working to resolve that. We have requested documentation. We've gotten some of it, and we are working through the rest of it. However, that will not hold up the overall claims approval process and the distribution process. We will ask the court to carve those out, and then we will withhold funds on those claims until that gets dealt with. The question is, why are they different than any other claims? This is actually because of the fact that this was a fund investment, and so a lot of the individual investors did not know what they were actually investing in, or were not aware of what the investment was because it was a pooled fund. And so we are just trying to work through that information to make sure that we are getting the money out to the right people, that the claims are associated with the right people, and that the collections would be associated with the right people. Are these HTC claims going to receive a higher settlement amount percentage? No, they will receive the same amount as anybody else would receive in their similar situation. If only a portion of my approved claims comes from my Horizon Trust account, why is the whole claim being held up? Claims are done on an individual by individual basis or family by family basis. And so if you have two different types of investments in there, then that is why that it would be held up. But again, we do hope to get those settled as quickly as possible. Like I said, we've been requesting documentation and been going through what we've received and hope to get that done very, very quickly. Let's see. So the next question has to do with the amount of cash that's available and whether or not all of that will be distributed. There will be some holdback of the distribution amount to make sure that we can cover any potential tax liability as well as any administrative expenses. But our goal is to distribute out as much of that as possible, and it should be a pretty significant portion of that money. And again, we also do anticipate receiving additional funds. As I said, the third-party litigation, we have over $6.5 million in that account right now, and are collecting additional monies daily. So we do expect that number will continue to grow. It says you document 868, the status for, let's see, sorry. This question is written a little awkwardly, but your document 868, the status report, shows total funds of 76.3 million, and then claims of 251 million. And then want to know why there's a difference. There has been continued changes to the claims amounts up until the time we filed the claims motion. The total actually of approved claims now is actually just right around $250 million. We have sent a total, or the motion that we filed with the court to allow claims was for 243 million, and then there would be some that were held back based on those HTC claims. Question about the lines on the status reports, other assets or uncleared funds, wanting to know what those are. We do have additional assets that we will be collecting and have continued to collect from defendants and from others. And as those are collected, those then go into the assets that we have collected and will be prepared for distribution. If the asset has to be sold, obviously we will go through that sales process and try to get that done quickly. Next thing it says, it seems like there's a lot of different numbers showing how many claims there are. Can you provide a clear understanding of how many claims there are? There were 1,063 claims originally filed. We have recommended allowing 896 claims in full, as well as partially objecting to approximately 19 claims. Again, the rest of those claims then would be claims that were either objected to in full or withdrawn. And so there were a number of claims that were drawn due to filing multiple claims or filing claims in error. Let's see, next thing is you previously mentioned that investor distributions would be made by paper check mailed to the address on record. Will you be sending an email at the time of mailing so we can be on the lookout? Yes. Whenever we are preparing a distribution, we will send out an email saying that we're doing a distribution and here's the date we expect it to be mailed. Due to U.S. Postal Service changes, you can expect that those might take 2, 3, or even 4 weeks to be received. We hope not, but it could take up to that long. If you don't see it within about a 4-week period of time, we do recommend you reach out to us and let us know. Let's see. It says next question says, I hope you'll explain the reason for the delay relative to late claims from the bankruptcy trustees and other parties. Those parties actually filed timely claims. There were no delays in those filings. Those filings were reviewed by our counsel, Alan Matkins, and we did make recommendations on their approval. Some of those claims, because of the types of work that they had done in the bankruptcy estates, did have an administrative priority, which means that they would be paid in full due to the type of work that they were. But as you'll see by the claims motion, that there were not very many of them, and that we limited that amount to only the amount that met the requirements, and was ultimately up to the court whether or not to approve those claims as they were. Next question is, have any of the defendants filed for bankruptcy? Yes, we do believe that one defendant did file for bankruptcy. We don't think it is going to have any significant effect at all on the estate, and so that we don't anticipate any loss of revenue or any. If so, it would be very, very, very minor. Are criminal proceedings being filed against the defendants for selling fake securities without licenses? Our understanding is that the Department of Justice is still reviewing some of the potential parties for criminal charges. However, the only one we're aware of at this point is Matt Beasley. He is scheduled to be sentenced later in July, and we'll let the parties know what that date is once it becomes a firm date. Litigation and third-party questions. It is said that the class action suit against Wells Fargo has been settled. The amount of money that was settled for was $50 million. And if you have questions about that or what that settlement looks like, the document number 887 on our website will give you all of that information if you have something specific you want to know or would like to read. Next one, of the denied claims, I'm speculating these were not time barred, but reviewed and determined to be false, fake, or fraudulent claims. If they were in fact, then I believe action should be taken against them by the Department of Justice for some branch of law enforcement. So there were, to my recollection, I don't believe that there were any outright fraudulent claims that were filed. Of the denied claims, some of them were duplicate claims where they had filed 2 different claims on accident, or there were some that were filed for claims of interest and other things that are not typically allowed in this process. But as far as an outright fraudulent claim, I'm not aware of any that were filed that would meet that category. If we did find those, we would generally refer those to law enforcement for prosecution. You told us earlier their contracted rate was far below the normal fee. This goes back to the 33% versus 25% number. As I said, the agreement between me and the attorneys is that they would receive 25% of any settlement. Let's see, that question was basically the same question. In the March meeting, you indicated that a binding term sheet was agreed to with Wells Fargo. The formal settlement was coming shortly. That has been filed. Like I said, the receivership court is scheduled to hear it on July 7th here in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the federal courthouse. If you have questions about that, you're welcome to attend the hearing or to reach out to us if you have specific questions. We might be able to help with that. Some people have questions about the amount of money that was accepted from Wells Fargo. There's one question about what kind of kickback we received from Wells Fargo. We did not receive any kickback from Wells Fargo. This agreement was negotiated, like as I said, by a number of the class council, my council, as well as other parties. At the end of the day, we believe that this agreement would be the best agreement to investors, based on the certainty of the dollar amount and the timing for payout, as opposed to potentials for, a loss in the case or even appeals that could last 5 or 10 years in this process. Uh, Next question has to do with, um, again, sorry, this question was the same type of question regarding the dollar amount. The next question is, what was the Wells Fargo settlement? Again, we settled for $50 million, and those funds, that settlement will be decided at the hearing on July 7th in the receivership court, and there will also be a hearing in the class action court as well. They've begun that process of noticing investors, and so you guys will see that notice if you have not already. What happened as far as culpability, liability with banks, including Wells Fargo? Again, we have a settlement with Wells Fargo. We are looking at some additional potential targets outside of third parties that were net winners or had received commissions, and hope to have more information on that shortly. How long do we have to wait for the Wells Fargo money to be added to the distribution? There is a timing mechanism set forth in the settlement. Again, it's got to go through the noticing process. Again, if we think that that's going to be held up beyond the date of which the first distribution would happen, we are happy to split those distributions and do them separately to make sure that we can get the first distribution out as quickly as possible. If we think it's going to be within a few weeks, we might hold off and just do them all at once, but otherwise we'll just plan to do them separately if there's going to be a delay. Next question, assets. How much money has been collected? To date, we have collected nearly $100 million. There have been some, of course, fees associated with sales of items that will have carved into that slightly, but there is a significant number of assets still remaining to be sold. We are about to file an updated accounting of what defendants owe in the case. And once that's been filed, then we will be working with the defense on turnover of the remaining assets in order to make sure that the amount that they owe back to the estate is paid back. Let's see, have you initiated sales of homes purchased with ill-gotten gains? We have sold a number of real properties and will continue to sell some as we recover additional properties. For the inventory of personal property under receivership control, can you publish a link on the website of what is still available and who to contact if you're interested in purchasing? Yes, we will update the website. Again, we are going through a second round of collecting of assets coming up here very, very shortly. And once assets are available for sale, we will post that information and where you can find out additional information at that time. Let's see, the status report said the recovery or anticipated recovery of assets is 185 million. Can you give us some details to the source of this estimate? Again, that is based on our estimate of how much we think can actually be collected from third parties, defendants, and professionals who might be responsible in the case. Again, that is our best guess estimate, but it could change either up or down depending on how collection actually goes as we move forward. Let's see. Next question has to do with somebody suggested there were no financials filed with the most recent court document. In fact, there is the most recent report we filed, which is document number 889, beginning on page 12. That information is available there. Next group of questions has to do with clawbacks. First question is, has money been collected from the LDS Church? We've been in communication with the LDS Church regarding tithing that was paid, and they are currently reviewing our accounting, and we hope to have a response back from them very, very shortly on the next steps moving forward. Next question says, in the motion to pursue clawback actions against net winners who received 51.1 million, it says we've recovered 4.1 million, leaving 4.7 million outstanding. As I said, we have over $10 million now in settlements with those parties. And so, and we've recovered over 6.5 million of it so far, and some of them are on payment plans. How long do the net winners have to send in what they owe before being sued by your team? The net winners have already been sued. We received permission from the court, and we are in the process of, we had filed a number of lawsuits. I believe it's somewhere around 140 total lawsuits that we've filed against those net winners. If any additional net winners are located in any of the processes, we will, of course, deal with those as we find them. Next question is, did the receiver miss a filing deadline against net winners? The answer there is no. We did not. We filed it within the time that we were allotted to file these types of cases based on when we became aware of who the net winners were. In addition, the court did toll the statute of limitations deadline and to allow us additional time to be able to file them. Do we expect the clawback claims to end up in arbitration with negotiated settlements like Wells Fargo? Our hope is not. Our hope is not that we don't end up in arbitration. In fact, there is no arbitration clause here, so there is no reason why we would end up in arbitration. We have been working with people on collecting those funds back, but at this point, we are not settling those and have requested a 100% return of any false profits that were received. Following the Wells Fargo example, should we expect final settlement of the clawback claims to be another 2 to 3 years? My hope is not. It is litigation, so sometimes litigation does take time. As I said, we have been in negotiation with dozens of parties and are currently still in negotiation with dozens of parties to try to get these resolved and get these payments returned to us. Let's see. When negotiating with investors who receive more money than they originally invested, what percentage of those excess funds are you seeking to recover? The answer is 100%. So again, those are false profits, and they were paid out using other investors' money. So we believe that 100% of those profits should be returned since they were not legitimate. Even after returning those excess funds, those investors would still have recovered 100% of their investment. In contrast, investors who suffered net losses would recover only a percentage of their original investment, which has not yet been determined. If that occurs, do you plan to pursue additional recoveries from the net winning investors in the future so that both net winning and net losing investors are treated more equally, with all investors ultimately bearing a comparable share of the losses? We are not aware of any case law that would allow us to go after investors, what would be considered their principal amount invested. And so that is not something that we would typically do, and will not and do not intend to do in this case. Again, because there is nothing that really supports that premise. It's unlikely that we pursue that. However, we are looking at other avenues, including some professionals and other financial institutions for areas of potential recovery. How much money has been collected from clawbacks and promoters? To date, as I said, we have settlements of over $10 million. We've already collected over $6.5 million of it over the last couple of months, and we'll continue to do so going into the future. Next question. Since payment plans have been set up with net winners to be paid by December of 2027, is it safe to assume that the receiver plans to close the case shortly after those payments are received and distributed, since it's probably diminished return at that point? Our plan is to try to get the case closed as quickly after we have collected all the payments as possible. Again, if there's any outstanding litigation, it would cause the case to slow significantly down, but not completely close. But we will do a cost-benefit analysis as we get closer to the end of the case to determine if we should take any additional steps or do anything different than what we had planned to do. That is the end of the questions that we received here. I do want to remind folks, if you want to get a hold of us, there's a few different ways to do so. You can reach out at contact@jjconsulting-receivership.com. Again, that's contact@jjconsulting-receivership.com, or you can call area code 702-832-2299. Again, that's 702-832-2299. If you have not already, I also recommend that you do reach out to go to our website and sign up for notifications. The website again is jjconsulting-receivership.com. Again, that's jjconsulting-receivership.com. I recommend that you go there. I will look through the questions quickly to see if there's anything that was not touched on, and see if I see any questions in here. I will do my best to try to answer them. Some people are asking questions about what we think the projected percentage payout will be. At this point, we still don't know. We don't have enough information on what can actually be collected versus what is owed in order to establish what that percentage is. But we will continue to make estimates based on how much money we think can be collected. And so investors can look at that and determine that, based on how much we think we'll collect divided by the amount of approved claims. And that will be the percentage that we think will be paid out. What happened to May? Litigation happened to May. It did delay the process a little bit, as you can imagine. We did have objections to claims, as well as I had stated previously, some issues related to HTC, where we ultimately decided just to carve those out so we could get the claims filed and not delay that process anymore. There's some people who are frustrated by the amount of time this has taken. I agree. This process is not a quick process. I think when the very first calls we had, we pointed out that these typically take at least 3 to 5 years, if not longer. I do believe that this case is going to fall into that time frame, or maybe even closer to the higher end due to the lack of availability of records, as well as the number of parties that are being sued in order to be able to try to get funds back to people. Next question is when will money be distributed? Again, we have asked the court for approval of claims. We do have to send notice out to the 19 people we've objected to. There's a timeline associated with that. My hope is that we will have an approved distribution plan by the time that timeline runs. And so please do follow that carefully. We're asking that those 19 parties obviously try to get those into us as quickly as possible, and we will work through any of those issues. Our hope is to be able to have that done very easily, and so the court won't have to have a separate hearing on it. But if they do, the timeline is set forth in that claims motion. Let's see here. If anybody who wants to attend the Wells Fargo hearing, as I said, it is July 7th at 10 a.m. At the Federal District Courthouse in Las Vegas. If you plan to attend, you will need to bring ID and you will have to go through metal detectors. So be aware of that if you do plan to attend. What's the update on the third-party litigation? Again, we have been working with those parties. So far, we have settled about 20% of those claims and do continue to work through the ones that have been filed. We've received a large number of filings that are AI generated, and we're having to work through those, but we have been responding to those in a timely fashion and do believe that we will collect on those cases. A lot of these questions have been answered already. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else in here that has not happened. Let's see. I thought a decision by the judge had been done in 30 days. That would have been 6/11. We did have a hearing. Again, the Wells Fargo piece was pushed back. As part of the claims process, the court did want us to give those 19 people that were being objected to an opportunity to make a case with the court as far as why they think that they should have been paid. We are hoping, again, to work through that as quickly as possible. Once the court approves those letters, they will go out within a couple days, and then we will get it dealt with as quickly as possible. Again, litigation slows things down pretty significantly, but we are trying to push through it as quickly as we can. But unfortunately, when we get objections from defendants and other parties, it does slow down that process. Questions about tithing, how much in tithing? It was over $3 million total. Let's see. Next question is how much money remains to be clawed back from winning investors? Approximately just over $40 million. Are you saying anyone that invested through Horizon Trust will be further delayed in getting a payout? Our hope is that we can actually get that done and get those filed in the same time frame that the objection notice period is in, so that can all be done at the same time. Let's see, questions. Let's see here. When can we do a live meeting where people can ask follow-up questions? Always happy to do an in-person meeting if we want to have one. If that's something that investors want, please do let me know, and we can reach out and have that discussion. I do see that there's some people that are having discussions, including, So if you guys do have questions, do let us know. Like I said, if you have questions, you are welcome to send a letter to the judge. She is aware of what's going on in this case and the timeline. Again, a lot of that timeline is out of our control because of the litigation aspect of what's going on. In fact, as you guys are aware, the SEC case has been put on hold while the criminal was going on, and it's being taken care of. If you have any other questions, who holds you and your company accountable? We are court appointed. We are accountable to the judge in this case, and we do answer to the judge in this case. Let's see. Next question. Any other questions here? Just trying to see if there's any other questions in here that I can get to. don't think so. See, Wells Fargo offered 50 million, you're shooting for more than 100 million. Understand that discovered facts affect the value of the claim. Let's see. We never had an offer for $50 million. In fact, any offers we would have had would never have been made public because of the mediation process and the fact we're not able to speak about them. I can tell you that 50 million is a significant increase over what we'd previously been offered, and do think that it makes the most sense given this case and what was going on. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's see here. I don't see any other actual questions. Let's see. How much money? Do not end the call without telling us how much money we should be expecting to get back. Again, I don't know what that number is today. Based on our estimates of 185 million divided by the $250 million in claims, that would give you an approximation of what what you think that it could be. But again, it could go up or down. That is about 74%, but we don't yet know if that would happen. So we are continuing to work on it. But if you guys have specific questions, do reach out, and please do let me know if you have any questions. If you guys aren't finding these meetings helpful, you are welcome to reach out to me. I've had private conversations with a number of you, including some of the people that are speaking here. But do feel free to reach out. And if you have questions about any of the settlements or any of the stuff that's going on, please do feel free to come to the hearings, and we're happy to talk to you about it. But if you guys want a live meeting, we will get one scheduled for the next quarter. So the next quarter, we will plan to do it both live and also via Zoom. So people who cannot attend in person can actually still show up together. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, please do reach out. And I do look forward to working with you guys. Thank you.